Welcome to Healing America with Dr. Jim White. Jim has been investing, coaching executives, and turning around companies for over 30 years. Now your host, Dr. Jim White.
Good evening. This is Jim White, and welcome to Healing America. This evening, we got a special guest with us this evening. It's going to be with us for the entire show. His name is Elliot Richardson. Elliot is the co-founder and president of SBAC, and we're going to learn more about SBAC from Elliot. And he's also the partner in the law firm of Corey and Richardson LLP in the Chicago, Illinois area. And welcome to the show, Elliot.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. It's great, Jim. Thank you.
My pleasure, sir. So, SBAC, what is SBAC?
Well, SBAC stands for the Small Business Advocacy Council. And, we're an organization that was founded about 10 years ago to provide a voice to the small business community, to fight for and advocate for small businesses. We are nonpartisan. We are policy driven. We believe that, Republican businesses, democratically owned businesses, all businesses need good common sense policies that will help them succeed. And especially, Jim, during this pandemic, we need to provide small businesses with the tools they need to make it through the pandemic and hopefully to recover.
Yeah. We're right in the middle of 23 days, I think 23 days, 22 days to the general election, November the 3rd. With your work on the SBAC and during the pandemic, as you say, what is your perspective, both sides of the line? And I'm like you. I don't care what you call yourself, Democrat, Republican, Independent. We're all American, and Americans, as Americans, in my opinion, and I'm not going to speak for you, but I think you share the same thing. We love small business. Small business is the backbone of America, and they're suffering. So, your perspective on the political environment today?
Unfortunately, I don't think small businesses and local businesses look at what's happening on the national stage and feel extremely confident in our political establishment. We hear a lot of partisan bickering. We hear a lot of nonsense. We hear a lot of fighting. A lot of finger pointing, when what small businesses need right now is good policy. We need laws. We need relief. We need to help property owners right now that can't make their mortgage payments because they're not being paid rent by small businesses who are struggling. We need another stimulus package that truly gets to the heart of helping small businesses. So when you look at the presidential race and you look at what's being discussed, there's a lot of mudslinging going on, but not a lot of policy. And I think that that's been missing. And if you want small businesses to grow, if you want small businesses to feel like they should stay in business through this pandemic, we need the confidence of knowing that our government is going to help us through. So I haven't seen that yet. So to be honest, I don't think the small business community looks at this race and is happy with either side and is happy at all, frankly.
I agree with that. And as we go to the polls, and actually we already started voting now, as we all know, and with all the small business people that I talk to, they are on the fence because I agree with you. The choices that we have for the two candidates are challenged on both sides, in my opinion. I think that the Biden administration, for me at this point in time, would be the choice. However, with that choice, from the morality or the civility, but there are also some policy issues, in my opinion, on that side of the administration as well, on the administration that come in, should they win on November 3rd. We talk about the stimulus package. As we know, there's been negotiation in Congress, and it stalled. In your opinion, why did it stall?
Politics. There are 56 co-sponsors of the Restart Act. The Restart Act would do much more than the Cures Act did. And I should say 56 56 co-sponsors in the Senate for a bill that would truly help small businesses. Our organization has annotated that bill to make sure that property owners who aren't being paid rent would be able to make their payments to the bank and not go into foreclosure. The last thing we need is another foreclosure crisis in this country right now. So when we say, why hasn't a stimulus package passed? The ideas are out there. The good policy is out there, but politics has stopped it from moving forward. And, when these negotiations are played out in public, when they're played out on the TV, when they're played out on Twitter, when they're played out through insults, how can you expect good policy to move forward? So that was a long-winded answer to a relatively simple question. The answer is politics. And we, as a community, as a group of small and mid-sized business owners, have to come together and speak with a very loud and unified voice and let politicians know that's not acceptable. Get this stimulus done so businesses can stay in business.
Mm-hmm. Do you see any potential action on that prior to November the 3rd? You think it's going to come back, that the voices are being heard, or on both sides of the aisle, just ignoring, and again, just back to politics, that we're not going to do anything, we're going to dig in, and while they are out of touch, in my opinion, out of touch with America's small businesses, don't realize that they are going out of business. They cannot make the rent. They cannot make payroll. And what do you think needs to happen to get the politics out of the way? Because we need action now. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, we do need action now. And frankly, I'm not confident that anything will be done before the election. I mean, anything's possible, but what we can do goes back to, how loudly can we speak? And I know I sound like a broken record in that regard, but, I think small businesses tend to feel like they're on an island, and that, they're fighting, especially now, just fighting to stay, fighting for their survival. Frankly, many entrepreneurs, many small businesses feel that way. So it's tough to engage and it's tough to push politicians. That's frankly what organizations like ours are all about. How do we aggregate and make our voices heard? Until we do, then Jim, I think, we're always not going to have that seat at the table. We need that seat at the table. And as small business owners in a small business community, we focus on getting things done. And that's what it's going to take, us sitting at that table, pushing to get things done for the appropriate stimulus to be passed. And whatever that looks like, right? No matter how much money is being negotiated right now to be part of that stimulus package, let's sit down, let's have a negotiation, and let's get it done for the small business community and frankly, the American people.
Mm-hmm. What is your organization doing now? I'm going to say today, or has done in the past month, and plan to do it in the next 2 weeks in order to continue to get that voice out there? Are we talking to local representatives? What action are you taking?
Oh, we're taking action on a federal, a state, and a local level. Here in Illinois, we're pushing a tax credit that would provide an incentive to small businesses that retrained and hired folks who have lost their jobs or their businesses because of COVID-19. So, there's all sorts of, whether it's a wedding photographer, whether it's a 1099 security guard, and there's no events that have been going on all summer. There's a lot of people that need to make a pivot. And there's a lot of companies in the technology space that would look with the appropriate incentives during this difficult economic time to hire somebody and to train them. We're pushing legislation on a state level to make that tax credit a reality. We're pushing occupational licensing reform. In Illinois, it is just too hard to start a business in certain areas. It takes 1,500 hours to become a barber, of education to become a barber in Illinois. I mean, that simply keeps people out of entering professions at a time when we need to offer lots of opportunities to individuals, Jim. We're doing all sorts of things on a city of Chicago basis, making it easier to open a home-based business, making it less difficult to navigate through regulations that really have no business being in place that don't protect the health, the safety, and the welfare of the public. On a federal level, we're really pushing to annotate and to pass the Restart Act to get relief to small businesses. They need this relief now, and to property owners. And you know, there's a whole slew of other legislative initiatives right now that we're engaged in. We had a policy committee meeting today, and I mean, the list was so long, we never get to everything. So, you know, we're doing a lot of that. In Chicago, we're really trying to make sure that disadvantaged communities get access to capital. What we saw through the PPP loan process was that, you know, entrepreneurs in at-risk communities in places like Austin and Garfield Park in Illinois and Chicago, they were just last in line for those loans because they did not have the financial relationships. They did not have the relationships with financial institutions to get that badly needed access to capital. So we're working on a lot of different things, Jim, to try to help small businesses and entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm. Are you familiar with the opportunity zone or the opportunity zone initiative that was passed in December 2017 by the Trump administration?
You know, I'm vaguely familiar with it. I'm more familiar with TIF funding and the issues with TIF here in the city of Chicago. But, you know, I'd love to hear a little bit more about it.
Yeah, let me share. And as I was hearing you talk, and I agree with everything you said. And we're just meeting for the first time. And I tell you what, my respect for you is just tremendous because it is so needed to have someone like you that's got the energy, got the intelligence, and being able to bring people together and pushing the snowball uphill, because that's exactly what we're doing. But we're going to continue to push together. There's no question about that. The reason I brought up the Opportunity QOZ Act, and like I said, I'm not a fan of President number 45. I've been known that for many years. Actually, I actually knew him before he was President 45. So I've never been a fan for the past 25 years, not the past 4 years. Having said that, he does have some policies that I agree with. And one of the things that occurred in December 2017 that came out of the Tax Cut and Job Act was an act called Opportunity Zones. And these Opportunity Zones has the criteria of medium income. So each state through the Treasury work together to come up with designation for these Opportunity Zones. And there's currently 8,800 in the United States. Well, what's so significant about that? The significance is this: there's $7.6 trillion of capital gains sitting on the sidelines. And this initiative is to say, you got the guys and gals and institutions got all the capital gains sitting over here. Let's put it back into the economy. We know that the policies need to be changed. However, what can we do more ourselves without having to always rely on the government here? The government's got to play. What can we do to push our own initiatives, push our own agendas forward? Well, this initiative says if you have capital gains and you invest in what's called a qualified opportunity zone through a qualified opportunity fund, you can reduce that capital gains by 10%, providing you do that and you make an investment for 12/31/2021. And if you keep it in the fund for 10 years, it's the appreciation is tax-free. Well, everybody hears tax-free. Well, they think it's just giving it more for the 1%, right? The 1% is getting richer and richer and richer and richer. Well, where that may be the case, but when I got involved in the initiative in 2007 and ultimately wrote a book on it called Opportunity Investing, which I released in March of this year, I did it strictly for the small business and the people to say, hey, we can't always rely on our state governments or local governments or our federal government, even we should. So what can we do to educate the high net worth individuals on discountable gains and be able to invest it in small businesses and other things like that. So as we were talking, I was thinking about that for the people in Chicago or for people around the nation. Right now, today, if you have an idea, if you have a good business, there's plenty of funding available for the right project today, if that makes sense. The project's got to stand on its own, but I would be more than happy to share that with the group to say, hey, we we need to continue to push at the federal level. We need to continue to push at the state level. But what we do in the meantime, what can we do today in order to probably bring in some cash and get some business into some cash? Well, there's been a lot of money that's been put out today from the sources out there. So that may be something to consider, and I'm happy to share with you more going forward for life.
Yeah, I mean, Jim, any way that we can spark economic development in at-risk communities. I mean, when you look at what's going on in Chicago right now and the issues, right, with violence, with vacant properties, any way that we can put money into communities and empower entrepreneurs to start businesses, to succeed in businesses, and you know, loans are one thing, but really bringing capital into these communities, it's essential. Things will not change until there is economic development. So what you're talking about sounds like an excellent vehicle. Would love to learn more about it. And when you combine that with what can we do with the TIF surplus in Chicago and direct some of that towards communities that need it the most, towards bringing financial institutions into these communities. How do we make broadband access available to businesses and individuals throughout all of Chicago, throughout the entire state, right? So everyone has the opportunity to play on a level playing field. You know, that's another thing the SBAC is about. Let everybody play on a level playing field. LLCs, small businesses should play on the same field as big corporations, and all individuals should play on that same level playing field. So what you're talking about sounds like it would fit right into that mold.
Yeah. And it's all initiatives. That's just one, right? So that's what we're looking for, is being able to try to bring an awareness and educate, and unfortunately, a lot of the business community, just because it's got Trump's name on it, they want to throw it away. And I caution whatever the administration may be in January 2021, continue to enhance that program. And should it be a Biden administration, don't throw everything away just because it's got Trump's name on it, right?
Listen, right now, first of all, it takes a lot of ingredients to make a good cake, right? And you got to put them all together. And that cake we're trying to bake right now is the success of small and local businesses and economic empowerment for communities throughout our entire state and the nation. So I would agree with that. And I would also say, you know, what we want to hear, you asked earlier about how we felt about, you know, what the presidential race is looking like, how it's shaping up. And, you know, what we want to hear about is policy. You're talking about policy. You're talking about good policy that can create jobs and create economic development. So that's what we need.
What has the local SBA and FBDCs? Do you work with those folks?
Well, you know, there's some great SBA lenders here in the city of Chicago, in Illinois. There's some wonderful 504A lenders, or 504 lenders, I should say. There are SBDCs, and I think the SBDCs, I'm sorry, you know, they serve a very important purpose. They educate entrepreneurs. They provide guidance to entrepreneurs. There's a lot of other incubators. There's a lot of other financial literacy organizations here that definitely help small businesses. That's not really where we play. We play on the policy end, but most definitely these organizations score I mean, there's a lot of organizations that help entrepreneurs that are trying to find their way, especially entrepreneurs now that might have never dreamed that they'd be in this position until they lost their job because of COVID. And now you've got a lot of people trying to start businesses because there just aren't other options for them.
Mm-hmm. You're right. The SBDC for the education, to understand the SBA, that has its, it works sometimes it doesn't work, and understand what you're saying from the policy side. But moving policy the way that we need to move it, regardless of what administration, in Republican, Independent, or Democrat, sometimes falls on deaf ears, but we got to continue to try to move that policy. In the meantime, what do we do, right? How do we, until we get that policy in place, like you said, I love your language, a level playing field. Man, I've said that for years. It's unconscionable that we got some of the richest corporations in the world that absolutely pay zero tax, and we got a single entrepreneur that's just paying, 25, 30, 35, 40, sometimes 43%. So that level playing field is necessary, in my opinion, from a policy, and absolutely support that. But when I get up in the morning and we know that we got small businesses that's trying to figure out how they're going to keep the lights on or how they're going to pay, what can we do? And that's a question that I'm not sure either one of us can answer right now. But that's a question I ask myself every day. What can we do today to help that small business or that person to be able to put money in the bank today, right? While we're working on the policy changes. And that's the reason we've been talking to a lot of SBDCs and the other instances. Hey, we got to get money to these people. We got to help them. We got to show them, because not only is the money issue, we got a mental health issue as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's different philosophy. So when the pandemic had really started and we were looking at what we could do in Springfield, we had a coalition of organizations that wanted to defer sales taxes, okay? Not forgive sales tax payments, but defer sales taxes so that retailers, restaurants, other folks could keep that money right now and keep them afloat. Government sometimes wants to take in that money and give it out as grants. They want to take that money and, form lotteries to see who's going to get the money right now. And the first thing I would do is look at laws, look at passing legislation that would allow businesses to keep some money in their pockets,
right,
as opposed to paying it now, not forgive it, but keep some money in their pockets. Frankly, I think that was the wrong approach. I would have allowed every business to defer sales taxes instead of paying those sales taxes and then giving grants out to certain businesses. In that way, you're really picking winners and losers. So allow people to keep some of their money as they try to make it through the pandemic. That's the first thing we could do. The second thing we could do is pass that stimulus. Put some capital into the hands of small businesses, mid-sized businesses, to keep them going, and not in such a restrictive way as the CARES Act, because the CARES Act really did not work for a lot of businesses. It really didn't work for a lot of solopreneurs. So I would highly recommend we do that. And then confidence.
Mm-hmm.
Have to instill confidence in the small business community that the government can do their job. And that goes back to the beginning of our conversation. And I will say that over and over and over again. Give the small business owner some confidence, and he'll keep going. He will keep fighting until he can't fight anymore. But when you look around and you say, my gosh, this is just a mess. And, what's going to happen? And the policies are all discombobulated. Well, that makes it much harder.
Yeah. If you were speaking to a group of up-and-coming potential politicians, and with your passion for policy, what advice would you give them?
I would say that there will be a time when things will come back around to good, common sense, policy-driven politics, right? And all of the name calling and all of the stuff that's going on right now, things are cyclical, and that can't last forever. And I will tell you this, almost every political person we talk to in Illinois or in the city, or even on a federal level, they want to do good. They really do. The people we talk to, we have wonderful relationships with legislators. I would say you got to find a way to break through that process, right? To break through the barriers, and we'll follow you. We'll be lockstep with you, but take this policy and drive it down the center of the field. Let the people on the edges fight on the edges. Those people are always going to be on the edges, to the right, to the left. There's this whole center of the field waiting to be driven down by politicians that want to make a real change for people, for small businesses, for families, and take the ball and run.
Mm-hmm. I tell you, the policy that you are working in, and like I said, you're very passionate about it. No question about that. Your local congressman, senator, I'm sure you've sat across the table and had some discussion. Has there been any policy, any bill that's come out of that they may sponsor that we should be letting our audience know about, especially in Illinois? What can we do?
Yeah, and we've had some great successes. I mean, we lowered one of the highest LLC fees in the nation with good legislators. We passed a bill that would allow restaurants to serve alcohol within 100 feet of a church, which actually had no opposition at all from the religious community. But because there were a lot of churches on some streets, restaurants wouldn't come in. Right now, we need to pass this tax credit. See, this is a level the playing field tax credit for small businesses. And when you talk about mental health and getting people back to work, we have to encourage technology companies that might be uncertain about the future to take a chance and hire somebody and retrain them and get those folks safely back to work, because I think we might be in this for a while. So that's something that's just so important. Occupational licensing, let's remove barriers and get folks into a position where they can start a new profession and start a new profession now. We're working on minority contracting reform in Illinois. Right now there is just minority contracting. It doesn't work. Let's spread those government contracts out appropriately to empower folks all over. And we're working hard on property tax reform. And this is really cool, Jim. We've got 6 bipartisan legislators right now that have joined our property tax task force. And we're coming up with real solutions, like local school district consolidation, like assessments, looking at the assessments and changing that structure. And when we're on these Zooms with legislators and we often talk to our members, they'll go, I don't know who the Democrat or the Republican was, because they're all speaking the same language. They're literally agreeing and speaking the same language, because we got to lower Illinois' property taxes. I mean, they are ridiculously high, and they're debilitating to a lot of folks in the state. So lots of work to do. I know I keep rattling this stuff off.
Keep rattling, keep going. And then it refreshing when you can be on a Zoom and you cannot recognize what party the individual belongs to. That's when we get something done.
I was so fired up after the last call. I mean, I really was. And so was everyone. We're like, that was productive. Fighting about property taxes and hearing people argue about it, that was productive. And, most of the folks on the Zoom were White Sox fans, and that made me very happy. So, there was a huge consensus on baseball teams here. So that was good.
Well, I tell you what, if you did that, you're going to get policy. You're going to get policy, more policy approved. That's for sure.
Exactly.
I tell you, we could spend hours and hours and hours, and we need to revisit again. How can people reach out and contact you to get more information, and how do they support you?
Yeah, people could email me at Elliot, ELLIOT, at SBACIL.org, and I might forward that on to somebody in the organization, but feel free to reach out to me. SBACIL.org is our website. You can find out a lot of policy initiatives there, and just get involved. We're bringing people together.
Very good. You have been a pleasure, sir. You're welcome back anytime, and we'll make sure that we get this posted and get the blog, and anything that we can do to support your initiative, please do not hesitate to reach out. And it's been a pleasure having you on the show this evening.
Jim, the pleasure was mine. It was wonderful meeting you. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Okay, you too.
Next week, ladies and gentlemen, we have Dr. Dove Snow. He will be with us next Tuesday at 6:30. Until then, be safe, social distance, wear your mask, wash your hands, and vote. Good evening.
Thank you for your participation and interest in Healing America with Dr. Jim White. To stay in touch with Jim, go to www.healingamericawithdrjimwhite.com.